Hey, I'm Rachel, this is Let Me in the Library, and I'm back today to do my October TBR. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I thought it would be really fun to try doing a TBR game. Alicia over at Alicia Reads has this fun D20 dice game in which you roll a 20-sided dice, and whatever it lands on corresponds to a certain prompt that you will then need to find a book for. So I took that idea with her permission and I changed up what some of those prompts would be. So I'll explain what that is, and then I will show you what I rolled and then what I'm going to read for the month of October. I just really wanted an excuse to roll a d20 because I don't get to play D&D in person anymore and I miss it. So I thought this would be a fun dice game to do. And usually when you play D&D, if you roll a 1, that's pretty bad. But if you roll a 20, that's really good. So I kind of tried to follow the same logic when I came up with the prompts that go along with each of these numbers. So if you roll a 1, you'd have to read a very intimidating read. So that is a pretty decent punishment for rolling a 1 for me because I'm intimidated by a lot of books and it makes me too afraid to actually read them. So I think this will actually be good for me. And if you roll a 2, you would have to read a very long read, something that's more than 400 pages. Then there is the TBR Veteran for number 3. So that's something that's been on my TBR for a very long time. And if I roll a 4, then what I'm actually going to do is I have this D4, it's a 4-sided dice, and I would have to roll this. And what I'll do is I'll have 4 piles of books out in front of me, and then I'll roll the dice, and whatever I get, that's the pile that I'll have to read. Then number 5 is Spin the Bottle. So this is a fun TBR game. Within a TBR game, I'll just have a bottle and I will roll it around in a circle, and whatever it lands on, that's what I'll have to read. For 6, I will pick a buddy read. Either I will find a buddy to read a book with me, or I will tackle one of the sort of like older buddy reads that honestly I committed to and then I ghosted, and I'm very sorry still, and I will read them. I promise. Number 7 is a nonfiction book. Number 8 is a popular YA book, because I am still trying to catch up on that backlog. Number 9 is an adult science fiction or fantasy book. Number 10 is to play the Bookoplathon board. There's a booktuber named Becca, and she runs this really fun TBR game every month for herself, and in September she had a Bookoplathon readathon, so then everybody else got to play, and I had a lot going on in September, so I couldn't play it, but I thought this would be a cool way to just incorporate it at any time in the year. So what I'll do is, looking at the board, there are actually 40 spaces, so what I can do is I can roll 2 d20s, and whatever space that lands on, that is the book that I will read based on the prompt that's written on her board. For 11, I have a random A to C generator, and for that I will run the generator, and I will have to read a book whose title or the author has that same letter for the first letter of their name. And for 12, I will have to read a new to me author. 13, I will read a sequel. 14, I will read an own voices book. For 15, if I roll that, my cat, Sasha, will pick the book for me. 16, I will do a Twitter poll and have you guys pick for me. 17, I will do a 5-star prediction. 18, I will read a graphic novel, manga, novella, something that generally doesn't fit into the expected norm of what a book may be. And 19, it will be a friend's recommendation. And for 20, I will read my most anticipated book. So I have quite a few D20s, so I'm thinking I will roll all of them together, and that will be my TBR. But if I feel I want to do more, I can always roll 6 more. And I'm also adding a rule that every time that I roll these 6 d20, whether I roll it only once or I roll it again and again and again, each time that I roll all 6, I get a d4, and I can use this to change one of the prompts that I get. So I will roll a d4 if there's a particular prompt that I just really don't want to do, and that will allow me to move that prompt up or down by the amount that I get on this dice. So that just adds a little something for me in case I get like 12 times that I have to read a long book, 400 pages, and I'm like, listen, there's only so many days in a month. No. So with all that out of the way, let me show you what I rolled. So we have a 4, a 19, a 20, a 13, a 15, and a 17. Let's roll again. So we have another 19, 18, 13, 1, 13, and 16. Here's our results. I really wanted to get a 10, but I didn't. Should I just roll again? I'll roll one more. This is not smart, but I want a 10. I got a 10! Oh my god! Okay, so a 10 means that I get to play Bookoplathon. So let's go through my picks for what I'm going to be reading in the month of October. So first off, I did roll a 1, so I'm going to have to read an intimidating book. That is City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a book that I'm actually going to be reading for Antsu's Double Booked Book Club. We're going to be reading this and discussing it on October 31st at 11:30 Eastern. I will leave in the description the time of the show and a link to the live show once it becomes available on Antsu's channel. This follows a young girl named Nari, and she has been doing kind of like magic tricks, things to entertain people, but one day she accidentally summons a magical djinn, which tells her about this beautiful city of brass. And I believe that they venture there, but upon entering, she ends up sparking this war that's been brewing for years. There are 3 books altogether, and I've only heard great things about this series, so I am thinking that I'm going to like it. I think I'm just kind of intimidated because I know that it's a very popular book in the booktube community, and I've also heard that not a lot happens, and yet everybody loves it, so I'm really worried that I'm going to be one of those people who's just like not a fan, and I'm going to have more books that I hate. Up next, I rolled a 4, which means that I had to roll a d4 and then pick a book from that stack. So I have a few books here in a stack, and my cat. A d4 is going to choose my TBR, so I'm going to roll this, and whatever number it lands on, that stack is where I'll be reading from. So let's go. Okay, wait, let me see what it is. No, let me see. Okay, it looks like a 4. Stop! Wait, that's my dice! You're changing the roll! Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Anyway, it's a 4, so I'll be reading from this pile over here, which has the life-changing magic of tidying up, as well as Girls of Paper and Fire. So I'm going to try to read both of these this month. Sasha! Can I have my dice back? I will be reading Girls of Paper and Fire and the life-changing magic of tidying up. I believe this is an Asian-inspired sapphic fantasy, which follows this girl who has to kind of compete with a bunch of other girls as paper girls who are kind of like serving the king, but she's like, no, I don't want to. It's the highest honor, and yet being chosen for it, it's a lot. And I think that this girl ends up getting chosen as the 9th paper girl, but instead of being made of paper, she's made of fire. Like, I really like this trope where there's a young person who kind of came from nothing and they end up having to be in a royal situation, and there's usually a competition, and I know it's not like the most feminist trope, but I just really enjoy it anyway. I feel like everybody knows what this book is about, but just in case, this is a book that's written by Marie Kondo, who famously has a TV show and a bunch of different books all about cleaning your house and making it better, and she has a very specific way of cleaning that is explained here about kind of just keeping the things that actually make you happy rather than just holding onto everything. And I have quite a bit of clutter in my home, so I would definitely be able to utilize this book to probably make my home a little bit nicer. Up next, I have my pick from the Bookoplathon board. So for Bookoplathon, I need to roll 2 d20s. So I got a 4 and a 14, so it's gonna be a 16. Hey, it's Rachel. I'm editing my video. And guess what? 14 plus 4 isn't 16, it's 18, you fool. So I don't know why I thought that. I can't even blame lack of sleep. I actually don't know why I thought it was 16. I am sorry. I'm gonna stick with it because honestly, I already filmed everything and I need to get this video out, so I'm sorry. In the future, I will do the math correctly. Oh my god. So here's the board. I did not be cute to print it out, but let's see what I get. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, do I count go? I think you start here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Middle grade. Don't you forget about me. I'm going to be reading The Slippery Slope. This is the 10th book in a series of unfortunate events. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Aline from Pygmy Puff Reads. We have been reading all of the books together for quite a few months now, so this is actually my favorite book of the series. Aline has never read the books before, so I am so excited for her to get to this book and also to just revisit it because I know it's going to be so much fun to dive back in here and just see my babies. I won't really talk about what happens in this book because I don't really want to spoil too much, but a series of unfortunate events follows these 3 children who were recently orphaned because their parents died in a terrible fire that burned their home, so they end up being passed around to different guardians, but they're also being chased by this evil man named Count Olaf who wants to steal their very large fortune left behind by their parents. So he keeps trying to sabotage them at every turn, and he kind of ends up chasing them around to different guardians and tricking a lot of people, so the kids need to be very smart and kind of figure their way out of these situations. So I really enjoy seeing them do that. And now this is the 10th book out of 13, so we're really getting close to the end, and honestly, these last couple books are just the best of the series. Oh my god, so much is gonna happen in this book. I'm not ready, and yet I am so ready. Next up, I rolled an 11, and I had to basically run a random number generator from 1 to 26 for all of the letters in the English alphabet, and then pick an author or a title which had the first letter that was the same as the letter that I was given by the generator. I got a W, which I thought was going to be hard, but I actually realized I have quite a few options for that, and I think the one that I'm going to go with is Wicked As You Wish. This is a book by Rin Chipeko that I wanted to read back in June with some buddies for a buddy read, and I didn't. I am very sorry, so I'm going to correct that mistake and read it this month. I've been really looking forward to actually reading this book. I do believe it's actually available on Spotify for free, but I also have a hold that's coming in as an audiobook very soon, so I'm excited to actually get my hands on it and get back into it. So there was this place, the Kingdom of Avalon, where magic thrived, but many years ago the Snow Queen waged a war, and now all of the citizens find themselves as refugees who had to flee to different areas, and so now the Crown Prince and his protectors are in Arizona, and very few people actually know who he is, and also magic doesn't work there. But they discover that there is this magical creature called a firebird that appears for the first time in decades, and they decide to kind of team up and go back to the Kingdom of Avalon and try to take back what's theirs and reignite magic for everyone. I also rolled 2 13s, and so that is a sequel. So I'll be reading 2 sequels. I'm going to be reading Authority, which is the second book in the Southern Reach trilogy. This is a lovely copy that I was gifted by Aline, so thank you again so much. And I'm going to be buddy reading this with Lena from Sufficiently Advanced Lena. And the first book, Annihilation, was a book that I absolutely fell in love with. I have reread it and I have loved it even more. And the second book I have been kind of putting off because I've heard it's very different, but I think I'm ready to dive back into that and enjoy it. So I believe that the second book kind of goes in a different direction, but I'll explain what the first book's premise is for anyone who's interested and has not read Annihilation yet. Annihilation follows this expedition that is going into Area X. And this is some strange, unusual region that sort of appeared someday and is full of completely unknown flora and fauna and things that people have never even seen before. So a whole bunch of expeditions have gone into Area X. Each of these expeditions that return come back in a state that is unlike what they were before they entered this area. People come back and they commit suicide, or they turn on each other. They come back as a shell of themselves. So this is following the 12th expedition that goes into the space. So there are 4 female scientists who each have a different role to play, but definitely some mysterious stuff is going on here. And from there, they need to not only investigate this area, but we're also following the biologist whose husband was on the previous expedition. He returned as a shell of himself, and she wants to find out what happened to him. So they are also trying to uncover the secrets of this space beyond just plain doing their jobs. For my second sequel role, I'm going to be reading the 15th volume of Case Closed. I think everybody knows this by now because I talk about these books a lot in my videos, but Case Closed follows Jimmy Kudo, who witnessed this terrible crime, but the people who committed the crime actually fed him this poison, which they thought would kill him, but instead turned him into a young boy. So he hides in the home of his childhood best friend, whose father is a detective, and he ends up going to the scene of the crime. Because he used to be a famous teenage detective, he is able to help his childhood friend's bumbling dad to solve these crimes, even though he's just a kid. So a lot of these crimes are very interesting, and they're very unusual kinds of murder mysteries. So this is a really fun manga. I definitely recommend picking it up if that's your cup of tea. It's definitely mine. And I'm really excited to get to this because the last volume ended on such a cliffhanger. So I've got to read this one next. I rolled a 15, which means that my cat Sasha picked this book for me. I have this party mix of cat treats, and I'm going to place some cat treats on books, and I'll just like tear them up a little bit so she doesn't have like 20 cat treats, and have her pick a book for me for my TBR. Ooh, okay, so that's the book she's going for. And that is The Girl from the Other Side. This is a story about these 2 worlds, the outside and the inside, and the monsters roam on the outside and people live on the inside, but this young girl ends up crossing that line and these worlds collide. This follows their story, and I have a couple other volumes of this as well, so if I really enjoy this, I think I will get to those this month as well. Up next, I have a book that you all picked for me from my Twitter poll, and that is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This is a book I have been putting off reading for a while. I don't know why I always do this because I know it's going to be really good, but I've been really highly recommended this book before, so it's really exciting that you all picked this one for me. Every day, this woman named Evelyn Hardcastle gets murdered at 11 p.m. This guy named Aidan Bishop ends up waking up in a different host's body every single night until he's able to solve the crime of what happened, why she was killed, and what's really going on here. There are 8 days, and there are 8 witnesses for this guy to inhabit, and after that, if he can name the killer, he's allowed to escape from this Groundhog Day type thing. I really like the concept of Groundhog Days, and I really like murder mysteries, so I kind of feel like this book is going to be really great. I've heard a couple of mixed things about this, but overall, very positive, so this sounds like something that I will really enjoy. I really hope so, and I'm looking forward to it. Up next, I have a 5-star prediction, and that is going to be Monstrous. This is a graphic novel that has been highly recommended to me from Sophia from Fantasy Book Addict, as well as a bunch of other people, and I know that this is Sophia's favorite book, so I've got to read it anyway, and I just think because so many people have loved it, and the lore and all of that cool kind of like steampunk stuff inside of here, that I will really enjoy it. I'm really hoping this is going to be a nice 5-star for me. Looking forward to that. I have described this a little bit more in my library book haul, so if you haven't seen that already, I will link that up in the cards so you can check that out as well. I rolled an 18, which means that I need to read a book that is like a graphic novel, a manga, a novella, and for that I'm going to be reading The Promised Neverland. This is a manga that I really love, and this is my pick for the month because it is my month to pick out the books that we're going to be reading between Little Buddy Read that I have going with Lou from Lou in Life and Lois from Lo-chan Reads. We always pick out a different series of manga or manhwa or graphic novels, and we take turns cycling who gets to pick it, and then everybody reads it and we discuss. So since this is my month, I picked The Promised Neverland, which I really enjoyed, and if you haven't read it already, this is what it's all about. There are these kids who live on a farm with like a lot of kids, like 100 kids, who live with this woman who is their mother collectively for everybody. And they are very smart, they study really hard, and then sometimes they get adopted and they get taken out from the farm. But one day they discover that something much bigger is really going on, and they decide that instead of staying in this place where everything seems great, they have to escape. I would really highly recommend that you read this, but what I would really, really highly recommend you do is watch at least the first episode of the anime. I believe it's streaming for free on Crunchyroll. I'm sure you can find it there, or maybe Funimation. The first episode breaks this down so well, whereas the book kind of throws it at you in the first chapter very quickly, and I don't think it's built up as well. The anime is really just fantastic. The way that they build the suspense, it is perfect for October, for this very scary season. So I definitely really highly recommend that. I'm really excited because I've been really wanting to reread this and rewatch it, and I think it's just the perfect season for this. So that is my pick. I hope that everybody enjoys it. Lou, Lois, and anybody else who wants to pick this up, I would really want to hear if you've read it or you're going to. I also rolled 2 19s for the friend recommendation option, and for that I'm going to be reading Hood Feminism. This is a book that Lois recommended, and I have heard that this goes into intersectional feminism, which I think is something that I need to study a little bit deeper, because it's very easy to fall into white feminism and think that you're doing everything, and you're not. So I definitely think this will be a very worthwhile read for me. I do like to read at least one nonfiction every month. The second recommendation that I'm going to be picking is The Kind Worth Killing. This is recommended to me by Tammy from Tammy Tries to Read. This is actually the group pick for our book club, the Whiners Book Club, and that is something that I host every month with my friends Darian from Darian Reads, Amanda from Ginger Snapped Reads, Mick from Mickless Writes, and Sasha from The Redhead Reader, and every month we cycle whose channel it's going to be on. This month it's going to be on Sasha's channel, and it's going to be October 30th, so I will leave the information for that in the description box down below, as well as the Twitter, in case you want to follow along with us and get some updates. But I'm very excited about this book because it is a thriller, and I haven't read a domestic thriller that really made me so thrilled in such a long time. So I believe that this follows this guy on a plane who kind of ends up confessing that he is not so happy with his marriage, and he makes this passing comment to this woman that he's talking to about how he could kill his wife. And she's like, I could help you with that. And he's like, okay. I think they end up in this situation where she is taking this way too seriously, and he's not even sure if that's what he wants. So it's going to be this very scandalous sort of read, the drama. So I'm ready to be thrilled. I think this is going to be an awesome read, and I'm very excited to discuss this. My last roll was a 20, which means I get to read my most anticipated book, and honestly, my most anticipated book right now is Jinro Game. This is a manga that I'm reading as part of the Host Club book club, which we've just started. I will link my announcement video if you haven't seen it already. This is a club that's dedicated to reading a whole bunch of different manga, including some popular manga and some hidden gems. So this month in October, we're going to be reading 3 volumes of Tokyo Ghoul and 1 volume of Jinro Game. And Jinro Game, honestly, is I'm so happy. I really love the death game trope, kind of like the Hunger Games, and this follows that, where a whole bunch of high school kids get kidnapped and taken to the space where they are forced to play a game of werewolf, where there are the villagers and the wolves, and people die, and they have to figure out who's the bad guy and stop them from doing all of this and figure out kind of who's organizing this game. So that is one of my favorite tropes. I just really, really enjoy reading about that kind of stuff and solving the mystery along with the characters. So I'm very excited about this. We're only reading 1 volume for the book club, but honestly, I feel like I'm going to read the entire series because I'm just so into it. Now, my rolls aside, I didn't want to roll so many times that I ended up having to read a million books, but I do actually have some other picks outside of my TBR game that I also just want to mention because I need to read them for other reasons. So one of those books is Little Fires Everywhere. I finally got my hold for this to come in after 4 months, so I just don't want to let it go yet. I think this white family adopts a Chinese baby, and there is some difficulty in understanding the correct way to raise somebody while including their culture, but also integrating them into your own culture. And honestly, I am not sure why there was a house on fire, because that's just from the trailer that I saw on Hulu. But I've heard that this book is really great, so I want to check out what all of this hubbub is about. And really see what's happening here, because I heard that after watching this show, a lot of people just like are like, I can't stand Reese Witherspoon anymore because she's evil. And I'm like, what? Legally Blonde who? What? I also have a book that was recommended to me by Amanda, and that is my best friend's Exorcism. This just seems like the perfect book to read for October, and I think that this is going to be really fun because it's written by Grady Hendrix, and I think that they always put really interesting little hints and just fun things into their books. Like, this is the first page of the book and it looks like a yearbook being signed, and if you go a little bit further into it, it actually does look like a yearbook. This is just perfect. So I'm very excited about this one, and each of the chapter titles are named after a famous song from the 80s. So I also have a hold coming in for Burn Our Bodies Down, which is by Rory Power, who wrote Wilder Girls. And I believe that this is about a mother-daughter duo, and it's only been the two of them, but the daughter wants more from that, so she actually discovers that there is this town that the mother fled from, which may hold the answers to her questions, and a family that she's been searching for, so she ventures to that town, but she finds it's not really what she was expecting, and she's wondering if maybe her mother left because there are still things to run from in this town, or if it was only to hide her past. I know this was also highly recommended by Amanda, so I am basically just reading whatever Amanda tells me to at this point. And I also have a hold coming in for Vicious Spirits, which is the sequel to Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. This was the book club pick for August for the Winers Book Club. It follows more of a K-drama structure to the story, and it follows this young girl named Mi-young, who is a gumiho, which is a nine-tailed fox. She runs into this guy named Ji-hoon, and she ends up losing her fox speed, which is what helps her to stay alive as a gumiho. So they sort of go on this whole adventure together, and there's a lot of drama, a lot of back and forth, will they, won't they, and it's very intense. And there is kind of a darker aspect to it because in order for a gumiho to stay alive, they must siphon the life force of a human. So Mi-young basically goes around taking the life force of men because you gotta take down the patriarchy somehow. So we all really enjoyed this book for the most part, Darian. I think it would be interesting to check out what the second book is about, because I think it actually follows some side characters that we saw in the first book and tells their story. I also already mentioned that I have the book club, the host club, so I will also be reading volumes 2 and 3 of Tokyo Ghoul. I already read volume 1 because last month I got a little overzealous making my announcement video, and I ended up just reading all of the first volume of Tokyo Ghoul because I just got so into it. And I also really need to read some arcs because it's Arctober, so I need to read my arcs for once. I think that's it for my October TBR. It's a lot of books. I didn't count them, but I'm sure it's like at least 15, 20. So we will see how this goes. This is going to be a busy month, but I think it's also going to be a lot of fun. I have a lot of other fun stuff planned for the month, just general life things. I'd love to know what your most anticipated book for October is in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. And I will see you in another video. I'm Rachel, this is Let Me in the Library, and I'll see you next time.
Is this the book you like now? It's too late, you already